Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Owen Porter stands in his brightly lit studio, a paint-stained brush in his hand. Sunlight pours in through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, gilding the entire space. He is concentrating on sketching a vibrant abstract painting on the canvas, with brushstrokes that contain his love of art and his sense of life. An internationally acclaimed contemporary artist, Owen's work has always attracted a great deal of attention in the art world. His unique use of color and bold compositional style earned him the reputation as a color magician. However, on this seemingly peaceful afternoon, Owen's life is about to take a huge turn for the worse. Putting down his paintbrush, Owen picks up his smartphone, which he has set aside to check a few emails. Just as he was casually swiping the screen, a notification from a social media platform caught his attention. It's a dynamic tweet about his wife, Valerie. Valerie Reynolds Porter, a talented interior designer whose work is always a perfect blend of modernity and warmth. Owen and Valerie's marriage has been recognized as a model couple in the art world, supporting each other in their pursuit of artistic excellence. However, when Owen clicked on that notification, his heart sank hard. What's on the screen isn't Valerie's latest design, but the interface of a dating app called Heart Whisper. Even more shocking to Owen, he sees Valerie's profile, which clearly shows her photo and some ambiguous personal descriptions. Owen's hands began to shake, and he couldn't believe his eyes. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the waves within him, and began to scrutinize Valerie's profile. The profile describes her as a thrill-seeking married woman, a description that makes Owen giddy. With an intensity that almost crushed the phone, Owen began to browse through Valerie's chats with other users. The ambiguous conversations and private photo exchanges, each message was like a sharp blade, piercing Owen's heart. He couldn't believe that his beloved wife, the woman who had made eternal vows to him on their wedding day, would do such a thing. Owen's heart is filled with anger, betrayal, and deep hurt. He began to think about Valerie's unusual behavior over the past few months, working late into the night, suddenly having a lot of urgent projects to take care of on the weekends, and even staring absent-mindedly at her cell phone screen when she was at home. All the pieces suddenly fit together to form a heartbreaking truth. With mixed feelings, Owen decides to investigate further. He paid for a premium membership to Heart Whisper, which allowed him to view Valerie's full chat and activity history. As the investigation progresses, Owen discovers that Valerie is not just having an affair with one man, but is having inappropriate relationships with multiple men at the same time. Every message, every photo, was a hammer blow that shattered the illusion of marriage in Owen's mind. He found out that Valerie not only flirted with these men online, but also met them in real life on several occasions. Some of the dates even took place at their shared home while Owen was away on business. Owen felt a sharp pang of revulsion. He turned off his cell phone screen and walked over to the window, gazing out at the bustling cityscape. At one time, the city was full of inspiration and possibilities for him, and now it's turned into a cold world of lies and betrayal. It was at this moment that Owen made a decision. He can't continue this marriage built on lies. Despite the pain that filled his heart, he knew that he had to act for the sake of his dignity and his future. Owen takes a deep breath, picks up his cell phone, and begins searching for the contact information of a divorce attorney. He knew that the next few days were going to be an uphill battle, but as a man who has always sought truth and purity in his art, he cannot continue to live such a lie. As night falls, Owen takes one last look at his unfinished painting. The vibrant abstract painting seems to have lost its luster at the moment. He gently covered the canvas with a white cloth, as if he were putting the final curtain on his dying marriage. Tomorrow, when the first rays of sunlight enter this studio, a new chapter in Owen Porter's life will begin. Although the road ahead is full of unknowns and challenges, he knows that only by confronting the truth can he rediscover himself and recreate art that truly touches people's hearts. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains and onto Owen Porter's tired face. He had been up all night, his mind replaying the heartbreaking evidence he had found yesterday. Owen took a deep breath and forced himself to pull himself together. He knew that the next few days would be a tough legal battle. Owen picks up his cell phone and dials a number. A calm male voice came on the other end of the line. "Good morning, Mr. Porter. I'm Alexander Richards, and I'm glad to be of service." Alexander Richards is one of the most prominent lawyers in town, and Owen wants his help. However, as the conversation progressed, Owen began to feel a twinge of unease. "Mr. Richards, I need your help with my divorce case," Owen said bluntly. "My wife cheated on me, and I have hard evidence." Alexander's voice held a hint of hesitation. "Owen, I understand your situation, but before we go any further, I must tell you something. I have represented your father-in-law in several business litigation cases." Owen's heart sank. He suddenly realizes that Alexander may be closely related to Valerie's family. This may affect his position in the divorce case. "I see," Owen said, trying to hide the disappointment in his voice. "So, do you think this will affect your representation of me?" Alexander was silent for a moment, then replied, "Frankly, Owen, this could create a conflict of interest. I would suggest that you seek the help of other attorneys. I can recommend several excellent peers for you." Owen thanked Alexander for his candor and hung up with a pang of frustration. He had thought that he could find a reliable ally, but reality hit him in the head. Just as Owen was lost in thought, he remembered an old friend, Marcus Davis, who had once mentioned an excellent divorce attorney. Owen immediately dialed Marcus' number. "Hey, Marcus," Owen said. "Remember that divorce lawyer you mentioned earlier, David something or other?" Marcus's voice was filled with concern. "It's David Thompson." "Owen, what happened?" Owen briefly explained the situation, and Marcus immediately gave him David Thompson's contact information. Half an hour later, Owen is sitting in David Thompson's office. David is a middle-aged male with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. After listening carefully to Owen's account, he got right to the point and said, "Owen, based on the information you've provided, we have a good chance of winning. However, I need you to understand that divorce proceedings can be a long and difficult process." David's professionalism gave Owen confidence. He explains the divorce process in detail, analyzes the legal issues that may be encountered, and suggests strategies to deal with them. Most importantly, David emphasizes, "We need to make sure that all evidence is legally obtained and valid. You say you have evidence of Valerie's infidelity, and we need to scrutinize that evidence to make sure it stands up in court." Owen nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope rise in his heart. He said, "David, I trust your expertise. I want this process to be as quick and peaceful as possible, but I'm also ready to face any challenge." David smiled and said, "That's exactly what I wanted to hear, Owen. We'll get through this together. Now, let's start preparing your case." As he left David's office, Owen felt a little more relaxed. Though the road ahead remains challenging, he knows he has found a worthy ally. Back home, Owen stands in his studio and stares at the unfinished painting covered by a white cloth. He gently lifted the white cloth and picked up his paintbrush. Though still filled with pain inside, he decided to pour those emotions into his art. The brushes dance across the canvas, and the vibrant colors intertwine into a powerful abstract painting. The painting is no longer simply beautiful, but incorporates complex emotions of betrayal, pain, hope, and rebirth. As the final stroke falls, Owen steps back and examines his work. He knows that no matter how hard life gets, art will always be his haven. And now he is ready to face the coming legal battle for his future. Sunlight pours into the conference room through floor-to-ceiling windows. As Owen Porter sits at one end of a long table with his attorney, David Thompson, sitting next to him, a tense atmosphere filled the room, as if it were the calm before a storm. The door opens and Valerie walks in, followed by her attorney, Alexander Richards. Owen tried to keep his face impassive, but he still noticed Valerie's slightly pale face and slightly tired eyes. "Good morning, everyone," Alexander began, his voice calm and professional. "We are here today to discuss the divorce of Mr. and Mrs. Porter. I hope we can have a rational and respectful conversation." David nodded, then turned to Owen. "Owen, is there anything you want to say?" Owen takes a deep breath and pulls a small tape recorder out of his briefcase. His voice was low and firm. "Before we begin, I wish to ask Valerie a few questions. I'll be recording them, so I hope you don't mind. Alexander frowned, but Valerie nodded gently in agreement. Owen hit the record button and looked Valerie straight in the eye. Valerie, have you been faithful to me throughout our marriage? Silence spread through the room for what seemed like a century. Finally, Valerie lowered her head and whispered, "No, I didn't." Owen felt a pang of heartache, but he forced himself to continue. "Can you tell me how many times you cheated on your wife?" Valerie looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. Just once. It was a mistake. Owen, I'm sorry. I really am." Owen noticed Alexander's slightly disturbed expression and knew that Valerie wasn't telling the truth. He took out his cell phone and pulled up the chat logs on HeartWhisper. "Valerie, these records show that you have had inappropriate relationships with multiple men, and some of those relationships have lasted a long time. Can you explain that?" Valerie's face instantly turns pale, and she looks to Alexander as if for help. Alexander shook his head gently, signaling that she should tell the truth. Valerie's voice trembled. I don't know how to explain it. Owen, I made a huge mistake. Not just once, but many times. I failed you, and I'm so sorry." Owen felt a sharp pang of disappointment and anger. He had hoped Valerie would come clean, but she chose to hide the truth. He turns off the tape recorder and turns to David. David cleared his throat. "Based on this evidence and Valerie's admissions, we have grounds to seek damages under the fidelity clause of the prenuptial agreement. In addition, given Valerie's deceptive behavior, we will be asking the court to favor Owen in the division of property." Alexander looks a little perturbed, but he tries to remain professional. "We understand your position. However, we need time to review the evidence and have further discussions with my client." Owen stood up, determination in his voice. "I have made my decision. I want a divorce and I want Valerie to pay for her behavior. David, please begin preparing the necessary legal documents." The meeting ended on a heavy note. As Valerie and Alexander leave, Owen notices that Valerie looks back at him with remorse and pleading in her eyes. But for Owen, it was too late. Back at home, Owen stands in his studio, gazing at the newly completed painting. The painting is filled with deep blues and purples, symbolizing his inner pain and sense of betrayal. But in one corner of the painting, there is a bright yellow color, as if a light of hope flickering in the darkness. Owen picks up the brush and signs his name at the bottom of the painting. This painting is not just a piece of art, it is the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Despite the challenges ahead, he knows that only by facing the truth can he truly regain his freedom. Just then, Owen's cell phone rings. It's David. "Owen," David's voice sounded a little nervous. "I just got word that someone broke into your home. The police are on their way to the scene. Are you okay?" Owen felt a chill run down his spine. "I'm fine, David. I'm going to check the situation." After hanging up, Owen walks cautiously toward the door. He didn't know what awaited him, but he knew that the storm was far from over. Owen Porter hurried down the apartment elevator, his heart racing. David's call put him on alert, but he didn't anticipate what happened next. When the elevator doors opened, Owen sucked in a breath of cold air. His apartment door was wide open, and the lock had apparently been violently broken. Just as he was debating whether or not he should enter, a sharp pain suddenly hit him, followed by darkness. Owen opens his eyes again and finds himself in a hospital bed. The blinding white light made him blink uncomfortably. Then he noticed David sitting on the edge of the bed. "Owen, you're finally awake." David breathed a sigh of relief. "You were attacked, and it's a good thing the neighbors heard the commotion and called the police. Otherwise, the consequences would have been disastrous." Owen tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness made him abandon the idea. "What happened?" he asked weakly. David sighed. "The police found you unconscious in front of your apartment. The doctor said you suffered a mild concussion from blunt force trauma and will need to be observed for a few days." Just then, a police officer walked into the hospital room. "Mr. Porter, I'm Officer Johnson. I'm glad to see you regaining consciousness. We need to ask you a few questions if you feel up to it." Owen nodded, trying to remember the details of what had happened. "I remember seeing the apartment door pried open, and then I don't remember anything," Owen said. "Did someone break into my apartment?" Officer Johnson nodded his head in confirmation. Yes, we found someone breaking into your apartment. But strangely enough, no valuables seem to have been stolen. Can you tell us if there is anything of particular importance in the home that might have been targeted by the intruder? Owen frowned in thought, when suddenly a terrible thought flashed through his mind. My safe, he said eagerly. It contains some important papers. David immediately understood what Owen was implying. Those documents probably include evidence of Valerie's infidelity. Officer Johnson makes a note of this information. We'll check it out carefully, Mr. Porter. Rest assured that we will investigate this case to the best of our ability. After the officer left, Owen turned to David with concern in his voice. David, we need to make sure those files are still there. If they're lost, David said reassuringly, don't worry, Owen. We'll take care of it. Right now you need to rest and regain your health. I will go to your apartment immediately to check on the situation. Owen nodded and looked at David gratefully. Despite his predicament, he still feels fortunate to have such a loyal friend and competent attorney by his side. After David left, Owen lay in his hospital bed with his thoughts racing. Who would do this to him? Valerie? Or did someone want the evidence? Just as Owen was lost in thought, a nurse came into the room with a cell phone in her hand. Mr. Porter, the officer asked me to return this to you. It was found in your pocket when you were discovered. Owen takes the phone and suddenly remembers something. He quickly unlocked the screen and found the home security system app. Being the prudent person that he is, Owen installed a state-of-the-art surveillance system. When he moved into this upscale apartment, and all of his data is backed up in the cloud. His fingers flew across the screen, his heart racing. If the surveillance system had captured footage of the attackers, the truth would have come out. However, just as Owen is about to access the surveillance footage, the phone screen suddenly goes black and runs out of battery power. Owen sighed in annoyance and leaned his head back against the pillow. He knew that the answer was at hand, but he had to wait. Meanwhile, across town, a mysterious figure is pacing back and forth in a shadowy room. The silence was broken by the ringing of the phone. Is it done? A low voice came from the other end of the line. Mystique paused. There's been an accident. We weren't able to get the file and Porter is still alive. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few moments. Then a sneer came out. Looks like we need to take more extreme measures. Make sure nothing goes wrong next time. The room fell silent again as the phone hung up. But underneath this calm surface, a bigger storm is brewing. The day Owen Porter was allowed to leave the hospital, the sun was bright and blinding. His body still ached, but his inner resolve was stronger than ever. David Thompson was waiting for him in front of the hospital with a concerned look on his face. How does it feel? David asked. Owen frowned slightly. Physically, I'm fine, but I can't wait to find out what's going on. David nodded and started the car. I've been in contact with the police. They're still investigating, but there's no substantial progress so far. Owen took a deep breath. David, I need you to do me a favor. I have a spare laptop at home, and I need you to go get it. David was a little dubious, but agreed. Half an hour later, they arrived at Owen's apartment. David quickly found the laptop, and the two left what was still a crime scene. Back in David's office, Owen immediately opens his laptop and logs into his cloud storage account. Come to think of it, Owen explains, I have a cloud backup of my surveillance system. If we can find footage from the time of the attack, David's eyes lit up, then we'll know who attacked you. Owen quickly skimmed through the files and finally found the video from the day of the incident. They held their breath and began to watch. The footage shows a man wearing a hat and mask in front of Owen's apartment. He skillfully picked the lock on the door and entered the apartment. A few minutes later, Owen appeared on the screen. Just moments after he noticed the door being pried open, the man sneaked up on him from behind. Wait a minute, David said suddenly. That guy looks kind of familiar. Owen scrutinized the image and felt a sudden chill. Despite the hat and mask, the man's body type and manner of movement were very familiar. That's Valerie's brother, Victor. Owen struggled to say the name. David sucked in a cold breath. Are you sure? Owen nodded, memories flooding back. Victor has always been against Owen and Valerie's marriage, believing that Owen is not good enough for his sister. But Owen never thought Victor would do such a thing. We need to get this to the police, David said, but Owen shook his head. Wait, Owen said. We need more evidence. If this is really about Valerie, I want to know the whole truth. David hesitated. Owen, this could be dangerous. We should leave it to the professionals. But Owen had a determined gleam in his eye. David, I need you to trust me. I have a plan. Over the next few days, Owen and David carefully gather evidence. They investigated Victor's whereabouts and found that he had recently appeared with Valerie near a date on Heart Whisper. Even more shocking, they discovered that Victor's credit card records showed that he had been in and out of a company called Privacy Bodyguard on several occasions. Further investigation revealed that this company specializes in removing unfavorable information online for its clients. It looks like Valerie and Victor have been working together to try to erase the evidence of her cheating, David concludes. Owen felt a surge of heartache and anger. Not only did Valerie betray him, but even her family was involved. Just then, Owen's cell phone rings. It's an unfamiliar number. Hello? Owen answered cautiously. Owen Porter, said a low voice. I suggest you stop your investigation. Some secrets are best never revealed. The phone hangs up abruptly, leaving Owen and David staring at each other. Looks like we hit a nerve with some people, David said, a note of concern in his voice. Owen took a deep breath, a spark of determination in his eyes. No, David. It just means we're getting closer to the truth. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city is lit up as if telling a myriad of hidden secrets. Owen knew that he was on the verge of revealing all the truth. Whatever awaited him ahead, he was ready for the challenge. Ready, David? Asked Owen, turning around. Next, we're going to let the truth come out. David nodded, a determined look on his face. They all knew that the next move could change everything. But for Owen, it's not just about revenge. It's about regaining his freedom and taking back control of his life. The night is getting late, but for Owen and David, the night has just begun. They began making detailed plans to prepare for the coming storm. Early morning sunlight pours into the conference room. As Owen Porter and David Thompson sit at one end of a long table facing Valerie, her older brother Victor, and their attorney, Alexander Richards, there was tension in the air, as if a powder keg was on the verge of igniting. Owen spoke calmly. I think we both know why we're gathered here. There was an imperceptible hint of coldness in his voice. Valerie looks uneasy, while Victor maintains a superficial composure. Alexander cleared his throat. Owen, if there's something you want to say, why don't you just say it? Owen nods, then looks to David. David opened his laptop and turned the screen toward everyone in the room. We have something you might be interested in. As the video began to play, the atmosphere in the room abruptly changed. Surveillance footage clearly shows Victor attacking Owen. Valerie sucked in a breath of cold air, and Victor's face instantly turned pale. That's not all, Owen said calmly. We also have evidence of Victor's frequent trips to and from the Privacy Bodyguard company, as well as records of his presence in the vicinity of Valerie's appointments. Alexander looked shocked. Victor, is this true? Victor was silent for a moment, then suddenly stood up. You don't understand. I am protecting my sister. This man doesn't deserve her. Valerie finally stifled a cry. Victor, how could you do this? I never asked you to. Owen took a deep breath and forced himself to remain calm. I could have just given this evidence to the police, but I wanted to give you guys a chance. Everyone in the room held their breath, waiting for Owen's next words. I'm going to buy the Valerie family's company, Owen stated his terms, for a fair price. In exchange, I won't turn over this evidence to the police. Alexander looked at Owen in surprise. You don't have the financial resources? But Owen interrupted him. I have. I've made a deal with Cargill and they're interested in your company. The room was filled with heated discussions and negotiations for the next few hours. Eventually, with David's legal expertise and Owen's insistence, an agreement was reached. The Valerie family agrees to sell the company to Owen for a fair price, and Owen promises not to turn over evidence of Victor's crimes to the police. When all the papers were signed, Owen felt a sense of relief. He looks at Valerie, once a lover, now a stranger. Why? He asked softly. Valerie lifts her teary eyes. I don't know. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was excitement. But I know that's no excuse. Owen, I'm sorry. Owen nodded, but didn't accept her apology. He turns away, leaving Valerie and her family to face their choices and the consequences. A few weeks later, Owen stood in his studio and looked out the window at the bustling cityscape. Cargill has completed the acquisition of the Valerie family of companies, and Owen has made a substantial profit. David walked into the drawing room with a document in his hand. The divorce is all but finalized, Owen. According to the prenuptial agreement, you get all the property. Owen looked at David gratefully. Thank you, David. I couldn't have gotten through this without you. David patted Owen on the shoulder. You're a good man, Owen. You deserve better. Owen turns to face his easel. A new piece is taking shape, brightly colored and full of promise. The painting is no longer a symbol of pain and betrayal, but an embodiment of renewal and hope. You know what, David? Said Owen with a small smile. I feel much better. This experience has taught me a lot of things. David looked at him curiously. Like what? Owen ponders for a moment. For example, life will always give you unexpected challenges, but it's what you do with them that counts. For example, the truth will come out one day. And he pauses. Art is the best way to heal. David smiled. Sounds like you're ready for a new life. Owen nodded, a determined gleam in his eye. He knows that while the wounds of the past cannot be completely erased, the future is full of endless possibilities. A few days later, Owen's new exhibition opens. The showroom was packed with art world celebrities and media. Owen's new work has received rave reviews, with critics praising his work as full of rebirth and hope for the future. Standing in front of his latest work, Owen feels a sense of calm that he has never felt before. There are bright colors in this painting that symbolize new beginnings, deep shadows that represent the pain of the past, and smooth lines that suggest the continuity of life and the possibilities of the future. A reporter approaches Owen. Mr. Porter, can you tell us what this painting means? Owen replied with a smile. The painting is called Rebirth. It represents how a person can rise again from betrayal and pain to find new direction and hope. The reporter nodded thoughtfully. That sounds very personal. Is this based on your own experiences? Owen looked the reporter in the eye and said calmly, Every artist's work comes from life. I just hope that through my paintings, I can give some hope and strength to those who are going through difficulties. As night fell, the exhibition ended. Owen stood alone in the empty showroom and looked around. The walls are filled with his works, each one telling a story and witnessing his growth and transformation. He took a deep breath and felt the peace and strength within him. Owen knows that this is not the end, but a new beginning. Whatever the future would bring, he was ready to meet it, to create it, to live it. With this newfound determination, Owen walked out of the showroom into the night towards an unknown but promising future. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.